Somewhere inside you, there is a number. You know you deserve it. A price, a salary, a fee. You have calculated it in private more times than you'd admit. And every time you go to ask for it, something inside you flinches. Your throat tightens. Your stomach drops. A small voice whispers, "Don't be greedy, just be grateful." So you swallow the number. You round it down. You say whatever works for you instead of stating what works for you. You call this humility. You call this being reasonable. It is neither. It is a leash. Someone else is holding the other end. Think about the last time you had to name a price out loud. Maybe it was a salary review. Maybe it was a client call. Your palms probably went damp before you even opened your mouth. That reaction wasn't random. It was trained. Somebody taught your body to treat that moment like danger. Nobody sat you down and explained it directly. It happened slowly, through 1,000 small signals, until asking for more felt like breaking a rule you never agreed to. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. He sat in exile, stripped of his title. He watched lesser men rule the city he once served. They didn't fail from lack of resources. They failed because they never claimed what was theirs. Machiavelli wrote that men are simple. They obey immediate needs. A deceiver never lacks victims. One sentence has trapped more capable people than any war or famine ever could. You heard it as a child. It is not polite to want more. That sentence never protected you. It protected the comfort of whoever stood above you. Here is a truth nobody says to your face. Guilt is not a moral compass. When it comes to money, guilt is a control mechanism. It was installed in you, piece by piece. Your teachers rewarded compliance, not confidence. Your parents confused modesty with safety. A modest child is easy to manage. Your first employer smiled and said, "We don't have room in the budget." The moment you accepted that without pushing back, you told them everything they needed to know. This isn't a conspiracy. It's simpler than that. It's incentive. People profit from keeping your price low. Guilt is the tool they use to keep you quiet about it. Let me be honest with you. There was a version of this philosophy that once undercharged, that said yes to unreasonable requests because saying no felt aggressive, that apologized before naming a price, that over-delivered to make up for a fee that was never enough. Here's what that produced: exhaustion without wealth, effort without leverage, popularity without power. The market doesn't reward the kindest person. It rewards a person who understands the actual rules. And the first rule is brutal. You are never paid for your effort. You are paid for your perceived value, multiplied by your willingness to hold your ground when someone tests it. Let's take the guilt apart. You can't out-strategize an emotion you don't understand. Guilt evolved as social glue. It kept small tribes together. It punished behavior that threatened the group, stealing food, abandoning the wounded, hoarding while others starved. That was its job. Stop catastrophic harm to people who depended on you. Somewhere along the way, that wiring got hijacked. It got applied where it never belonged. Asking a fair price for your labor is not stealing from the tribe. It's not hoarding. It's trade. But your nervous system still runs old software. It reacts to a simple negotiation, like a threat to your survival. That's why your hands shake when you name your number. Your body thinks it's facing death. It's actually facing an email. Machiavelli's whole philosophy rests on one plain observation. The world doesn't run on how things should be. It runs on how things actually are. And here's how things actually are. Every negotiation is a small territorial dispute. Two people want the same resource to move their way. One was trained since childhood to feel ashamed of wanting it. The other wasn't. Who wins? Not the more skilled one. Not the harder worker. The one without the shame. The one who can say the number, hold the silence, and not flinch when the other side tests it. Chapter 1. Stop asking if you deserve it. Deserving is a courtroom word. You are not in a courtroom. Nobody audits your worth and hands you a certificate. The market doesn't care about your childhood or your late nights. It responds to positioning. A mediocre negotiator who believes their price will out-earn a brilliant expert who apologizes for theirs. That's unfair. So is gravity to anyone who never built wings. Machiavelli didn't waste time complaining that virtue should be rewarded. He studied why it often wasn't. Then he adjusted. Do the same. Drop the question, do I deserve this? Ask a sharper one instead. What does a market actually pay for this? And how do I position myself to receive it without blinking? Two people can have the exact same skill level. One asks, do I deserve more? And stays stuck for years, waiting for permission that never comes. The other asks, what does this actually go for? And adjusts their price within a single conversation. Deserving is a question about the past. Positioning is a question about the present. Only one of them changes your bank balance. Chapter 2. Understand the discomfort tax. Pay it early. Everyone who ever raised their price felt sick doing it. That discomfort isn't a sign you did something wrong. It's a toll booth. You can't reach the next level without paying it. Most people feel that discomfort and retreat. They lower the number. They apologize. They confirm to their own mind that discomfort means danger. This is how people stay poor for 30 years while working hard. They keep paying the retreat tax instead of the growth tax. The growth tax is paid once, in one hard conversation. The retreat tax is paid daily for the rest of your working life. As resentment, picture someone who finally asks for a raise. Their voice cracks halfway through the sentence. Their manager pauses. That pause feels endless. It lasts maybe 4 seconds. To the person asking, it feels like an hour. Most people break in that exact moment. They add a nervous joke. They soften the number before anyone even responds. The ones who stay quiet, who let those 4 seconds pass untouched, are the ones who get the raise far more often than they expect. Chapter 3. Silence is a weapon. Most people give it away for free. Someone states a price. There's a pause. And in that pause, they can't stand the quiet. They start talking again. But that's flexible. We could discuss it. Nobody asked. Nobody objected. They just couldn't survive 3 seconds of silence. So they negotiated against themselves. Machiavelli wrote about the discipline of a ruler who stays calm while calculating underneath. Use that discipline here. State your number. Close your mouth. Let the silence stretch until it's uncomfortable for them. Not you. Whoever speaks first after the number usually loses ground. Chapter 4. Audit the cost of being liked. Someone taught you that being liked pays off eventually. Run the numbers. And that belief collapses. The most liked employee is rarely the highest paid. The freelancer who never pushes back earns the least per hour because everyone quietly decided their time was free. Being liked and being valued are not the same currency. You can't spend one to buy the other. Value comes from boundaries, from scarcity, from stating a price that doesn't bend just because someone is friendly while asking. You can still be warm. You can still be generous. But generosity from strength looks nothing like generosity pulled out of you by guilt. People feel that difference, even when they can't name it. Think of the coworker everyone describes as so easy to work with. They say yes to every extra task. They never complain about scope creep. Everyone likes them. Almost nobody promotes them. Meanwhile, the colleague who calmly says, "That's outside what we agreed," gets labeled difficult once and respected for years after. Likability without boundaries expires quickly. Respect built on clear limits does not. Chapter 5. Learn who benefits from your guilt. This one is uncomfortable because it means looking honestly at people close to you. Not everyone who winces at your new price is a villain. Some just carry their own scarcity fears. But some people benefit directly from you staying small. The client who always finds a reason your rate should stay the same. The relative who jokes about you getting fancy. The colleague who goes cold the week you get promoted past them. Machiavelli's real insight wasn't that people are evil. It was that people follow their own interests. Study those interests instead of assuming good intentions everywhere. Once you see this clearly, guilt turns into something useful. Information. Watch what happens the next time you mention a price increase to someone close to you. Some people will ask genuine questions. Others will change the subject fast, almost too fast, as if the topic itself made them uncomfortable. That second reaction is data. It tells you something about their stake, and you're staying exactly where you are. You don't need to confront them about it. You just need to stop being surprised by it. Chapter 6. Every underpriced yes compounds against you. This isn't a metaphor. It's closer to math. The first time you accept less than your worth, you don't just lose that one deal. You set a reference point in their mind and in yours for what you'll accept. That point becomes the anchor for every negotiation after it. Underpricing once is a data point. Underpricing for years is an identity. And identities are hard to renegotiate because everyone around you has already built their expectations on the discounted version of you. Set the anchor high, even when it scares you. You'll live inside whatever anchor you set today. Two writers start the same year. One takes a low first assignment to get their foot in the door. The other holds firm on a fair rate from day one, even when it costs them that first client. 5 years later, the first writer is still fighting to raise rates that everyone already expects to stay low. The second writer has spent 5 years being paid what they asked for from the very beginning. Neither writer was more talented. One simply refused to let the first transaction set a discount that would follow them for years. Chapter 7. The hardest lesson. Detach from whether they say yes. This is where guilt hides its deepest root. Somewhere in you is a belief that if you ask for your worth and they walk away, it proves you were never worth it. That belief is false. It's also the exact lever that keeps talented people underpaid for life. The truth is colder and more freeing. Some people simply can't afford you. Some will never value what you offer, no matter the price. Neither has anything to do with your worth. Machiavelli's rulers knew not every alliance is worth saving. Chasing one that no longer serves you is more dangerous than losing it. The moment you can state your number and stay neutral about the answer, you've crossed into a different category entirely. People sense that neutrality, and it's exactly what makes them say yes more often, not less. Think of two salespeople pitching the same product. One needs a sale to feel okay about themselves that day. The other will be fine either way, and simply prefers a yes. Buyers can feel the difference within seconds, even without knowing why. Desperation has a smell. Neutrality has a calm. People trust calm far more than they trust need. Hold everything said so far for a second, because it already points somewhere uncomfortable. Next time your voice shakes before naming your number, don't wait for the shaking to stop. Machiavelli never waited for fear to disappear before acting. He simply refused to let fear choose for him. State the number while your hands still tremble. Hold the silence while your stomach is still tight. Let the guilt sit in the room without obeying it. Let it pass like a storm without mistaking its noise for a command. But knowing this isn't the same as doing it under real pressure, with real money on the table. So let's go deeper. The mechanics underneath this belief still need to be taken apart, piece by piece, before you can trust yourself in the moment that matters. Let's go back to Florence for a moment. History already ran this experiment centuries ago. The Medici family didn't build Europe's most powerful bank by apologizing for their fees. Cosimo de' Medici understood something most people still refuse to accept. A service priced too low isn't received as generosity. It's received as a signal of low value, and it invites contempt instead of gratitude. When Cosimo financed a struggling merchant, he didn't discount the loan out of pity. He priced it precisely, sometimes harshly, because a firm price protects a relationship better than a discount ever could. A discounted favor creates quiet shame on both sides. A properly priced exchange creates respect. Most people get this backwards. They think lowering the price saves a relationship. It quietly poisons instead. The other person senses you didn't value your own work enough to defend it. Their respect for you drops to match. Cosimo also understood timing. He rarely discounted under pressure, but he sometimes forgave a debt entirely on his own terms when it served a longer purpose. That distinction mattered. A discount given under pressure teaches the other side that pressure works. A favor given deliberately from a position of strength teaches nothing but gratitude. The difference between the two isn't the money, it's who controls the moment it happens. Here's a different kind of case study, closer to ordinary work. Long before he became one of the richest men in history, John D. Rockefeller worked as a bookkeeper. He tracked every cent that passed through his hands. What's less discussed is how precisely he priced his own judgment once he started making deals. Rockefeller refused to negotiate down just because a room felt tense. He sat through silences that made other men visibly anxious. He never spoke first. Colleagues called him unervingly still during negotiations, as if the outcome mattered less to him than everyone else at the table. That stillness wasn't indifference. It was detachment built on purpose. He knew the person most desperate to close a deal always pays a hidden tax for that desperation. He refused to be that person. Now bring this into a scene you've probably lived yourself. A client reaches out. The project sounds reasonable. You quote a fair number, maybe even a generous one. There's a pause on their end, not because the number is wrong. Negotiation is a ritual, and rituals need a pause to feel real. In that pause, something old and untrained in you panics. You imagine them thinking you're arrogant. You imagine them comparing you to someone cheaper. You imagine the whole deal disappearing. Underneath that, an older fear, being unwanted, cast out. So you speak first. I could probably work with a lower rate. You just handed them a discount nobody asked for in exchange for silence that was never dangerous. This one reflex, repeated across a career, cost more income than bad luck ever could. Here is a smaller, more recent example. A young designer once priced a logo project at $400. The client asked for a discount, almost as a reflex, the way people do at markets. The designer's stomach dropped. She almost said yes on the spot. Instead, she said nothing for a moment. Then she said, "The price is $400. The client paid it without another word. She later admitted she nearly cut the number in half out of pure panic. Nothing bad happened when she held it. That is the part guilt never tells you. Most of the time, nothing bad happens when you hold your price. The disaster you imagine almost never arrives. It's worth explaining why this reflex feels so much stronger than logic would predict. Your nervous system didn't evolve in boardrooms. It evolved in small tribes where social standing meant survival. Being seen as greedy by the group could mean exile. For tens of thousands of years, that was genuinely dangerous. That wiring hasn't updated. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a tribal elder judging you around a fire and a client reading your invoice on a laptop. It fires the same old alarm either way. This is why willpower alone rarely fixes this. You can't think your way out of a reflex built into your biology. You build new evidence instead, one held silence at a time, until your nervous system slowly updates what it treats as dangerous. Let's make the earlier point about comfort more concrete. Vague warnings rarely change behavior. Picture two equally skilled professionals. One charges properly and holds that price under pressure. The other discounts by about 20% every time discomfort shows up in a negotiation. That happens more often than people admit. Run that 20% gap across 10 years of compounding opportunity. Raises building on raises. Referrals built on reputation. Rates rising with demonstrated confidence. These two professionals don't end up close. They end up in different financial worlds. Despite starting with equal skill, the gap was never about talent. It was about who could sit through silence after stating a number and who couldn't. Some of this will make people around you uncomfortable. I'll say it plainly instead of softening it, because softening it here defeats the point. Some relationships in your life are priced at a discount specifically because raising your price threatens the other person's budget, position, or self-image. Raise that price, and some of those relationships will strain. A few might end. That's not a flaw in the strategy. It's a strategy revealing something the discount was hiding. Machiavelli warned rulers against chasing universal approval, because a ruler who needs everyone's approval becomes predictable. Predictable people get exploited by anyone willing to apply pressure. Universal approval and accurate pricing can't coexist forever. Eventually, you choose one. Let's make this actionable. Philosophy without a rehearsed moment is just a thought you'll forget by tomorrow. Next time you state your price, prepare one sentence. Say it flat. No rising question mark at the end. Not the rate is around 2,000. Does that work? Just the rate is 2,000. Full stop. Then silence. If they push back, resist the urge to justify or lower immediately. Let a second round of silence pass. If you must speak, ask a question instead of making a concession. What were you expecting to invest in this? That question returns the pressure to them, right where negotiation theory says it belongs. This isn't manipulation. It's simply refusing to volunteer weakness nobody asked for. There's a second version of this technique for written communication. Draft the email with your number in it. Read it back once. Delete every sentence that apologizes, hedges, or explains why the price is what it is. Send exactly what's left. Most people write 3 paragraphs of justification around a single number, as if the number itself were a crime that needed defending. Strip the justification away. Let the number stand on its own. Here's the deeper layer beneath all of this. Most people never reach it because they stop at tactics and skip the identity underneath. Tactics without identity chains collapse under pressure, the same way a diet collapses the moment stress returns. The tactic was never backed by a real belief. You can memorize a sentence in the last chapter perfectly and still crumble in the moment, because underneath the words, you still believe wanting more makes you a slightly worse person. That belief needs replacing, not overriding. And it's replaced the same way every belief is, through repeated evidence that contradicts it. Every time you state a number and survive the silence, you're not just closing a deal. You're collecting proof against an old, false verdict about who you're allowed to be. 2 systems run quietly beneath almost every money decision you make. Only one of them was built for you. The first, called the servant's logic, was installed by every well-meaning authority figure who told you to be grateful for what you're given. It measures your worth by how little friction you cause. A smooth interaction counts as a win, no matter what it actually costs you. The second, the strategist's logic, measures success differently. It asks whether the outcome served your position, not whether the room felt comfortable. Handed the same negotiation, the servant lowers the price to protect the mood. The strategist holds the price and lets the mood do whatever it needs to do, because the mood was never the point. Most people run the servant's logic their whole lives, never knowing a second system existed. You can spot which system someone runs by watching one single moment. The moment right after they name a price. The servant watches the other person's face for a reaction, ready to retreat at the first sign of hesitation. The strategist states a number and moves on to the next sentence, as if the price were simply a fact, not a request for permission. Watch for that moment in your own life. It will tell you which system you're currently running. Faster than any amount of self-reflection ever could, guilt fuses 2 things together in your mind that are not the same: kindness and concession. Kindness is generosity chosen from strength, freely, without pressure. Concession is surrendering your position because you couldn't stand the discomfort of holding it. From the outside, they can look identical. You end up charging less either way, but the internal experience is completely different, and so is the long-term result. Kindness from strength earns respect and gets remembered as generosity. Concession under guilt earns nothing. It quietly teaches the other person that pressure works on you. Once they learn that lesson, they'll apply the same pressure again, because you showed them it works. There's a simple test to tell the 2 apart in the moment. Ask yourself one question before you agree to anything. Would I be offering this if they hadn't pushed it all? If the answer is yes, it's kindness. If the answer is no, it's concession wearing kindness's coat. The test takes 2 seconds. Most people skip it entirely and pay for that skip for years. Everyone who has ever quietly discounted their worth tells themselves the same lie. This is just one exception, just this once. Machiavelli's histories are full of rulers who made the same mistake at a larger scale. One exception to a rival, one unearned favor, believing it would stay isolated. It rarely does. An exception once granted becomes a new expectation almost instantly. Human memory doesn't file exceptions separately from patterns. The other party remembers what happened, not the caveat you attached to it privately. The client who got a discount just this once will expect it the next time, and the time after that, until exception quietly becomes the rate. This is why holding your price matters, even in small, low-stakes moments. Nothing stays temporary once it's been paid. A landlord once lowered rent by $50 for a tenant going through a rough month. It felt like simple kindness. The tenant remembered it as the actual rent. Every renewal after that, the $50 gap reappears an argument, as if the original price had never existed at all. The landlord spent 3 years trying to walk back one moment of goodwill. The exception had quietly rewritten the agreement, without either side ever signing anything new. If everything so far has landed, you're probably looking at your own current rate a little differently right now. That number wasn't handed to you by objective calculation. It was negotiated by a version of you running on the servant's logic, shaped by guilt, shaped by whatever your first client or employer taught your nervous system to expect. Here's the good news buried in that. If the number was constructed, it can be reconstructed. Not overnight, not without discomfort, but deliberately, one held silence at a time, until the new number feels as natural as the old one used to. It's easy to romanticize figures like Machiavelli or the Medici as simply ruthless, as if cruelty alone explains their success. That reading misses the point entirely. What separated them wasn't cruelty. It was clarity, an unwillingness to let discomfort distort their read of a situation. They were often warm, even generous, to people loyal to them. But when it came time to price a loan or settle a dispute, they didn't let a tense room override the correct position. That's the real inheritance here. Not coldness for its own sake. Clarity that survives discomfort intact. History remembers the loud names, the conquerors, the men whose portraits hang in gilded frames. It rarely remembers the quiet negotiators who financed those thrones, the bankers who priced loans to kings without flinching when royalty applied pressure. These weren't reckless men. If anything, they were more careful than anyone else in the room. A firm, fair price protects a relationship far longer than a discount ever does. A king who pressures a merchant into a bad rate once will expect the same next year, and eventually bankrupt that merchant through 1,000 small, reasonable concessions. The merchants who survived generations weren't the friendliest. They were the ones willing to lose one transaction rather than lose their position permanently. Their names rarely appear in the history books people read for entertainment. Their ledgers do, centuries later. Historians study their account books to understand how entire economies actually functioned. Nobody remembers the individual loan. They refuse a discount for a duke in a bad mood. Everyone benefited, generations later, from the fact that the whole system trusted a fair price to hold. This distinction matters, because guilt blurs it every time you face a real negotiation. Losing a single deal costs you exactly that deal. It stings for an afternoon and gets forgotten within a month. Losing your position, by quietly discounting your worth to preserve a relationship, costs you every future transaction built on that same discount, for as long as the relationship lasts. The math isn't close. A strategist would rather lose 10 small deals and accept one permanently discounted position, because 10 lost deals are noise and one discounted position is a tax paid indefinitely. Most people fear the wrong loss. They protect the deal in front of them and quietly give up the decade behind it. Imagine turning down one client this month over price. It feels like a real loss. It costs you a real specific number. Now imagine the opposite. You accept the discount, and that client tells 3 colleagues about your rate. Suddenly 4 people expect the same discount. That one small concession didn't just cost you one deal. It quietly set the price for deals you haven't even had yet. Before we close, here is the real question underneath everything in this video. Answer it honestly, not with the answer that sounds correct. Whose comfort have you been protecting at the direct cost of your own future? A client who tests you every renewal? A family member who jokes about your ambition? A version of yourself years ago taught that wanting more made you difficult and quietly obeyed ever since? Machiavelli never asked his readers to become cruel. He asked them to become accurate, to see the room exactly as it is, not as guilt insists it should be. That accuracy is available to you the next time your price gets questioned. Use it. Write the name down if you have to, not to confront them, just to see it clearly. Most people carry this answer for years without ever writing it down, which is exactly why it keeps its power over them. Naming it on paper takes almost nothing away from the relationship. It takes everything away from the guilt. Let's reframe the whole premise of this video, because by now you can see it clearly. Guilt was never protecting the people around you. It was protecting a story you were told before you had the judgment to question it. A story that confused modesty with morality and silence with kindness. The people who built empires, in money or in power, didn't succeed because they eliminated that guilt. Very few humans ever do. They succeeded because they learned to act correctly while the guilt was still there. The way a soldier learns to advance while afraid. Waiting for fear to disappear before acting guarantees you'll wait forever. So here's where I leave you. Let this sit longer than the length of this video. The next number you're afraid to say out loud isn't a test of your worth. It's a test of whether you'll let an old, misapplied alarm system make your decisions for you for the rest of your working life. Machiavelli built a whole philosophy on one plain idea. The world rewards people who see it exactly as it is, not as they wish it were. And the world doesn't pay you for your comfort. It pays you for your position. Held clearly, stated plainly, defended without apology the first time anyone dares to test it. State the number. Hold the silence. Let the guilt sit in the room without obeying it. Walk out having priced yourself the way history's sharpest strategists always did. Not by what feels comfortable to ask for, by what is actually true. If this video shifted the way you see your own worth, don't just scroll past it. Like this video, drop a comment telling me which strategy hit you the hardest, and subscribe, because every video on this channel is built to sharpen your mind and separate you from the crowd that stays comfortable. No fluff, no noise, just doctrine. Most people don't lose this game. They just never played it.